we don't. John Fetterman was the only Democrat to embarrass themselves during a debate. New York Governor Kathy Hochul forced to confront surging crime during her matchup against Republican Lee Zeldin. She was completely baffled by the concept of jailing criminals.
You can either work on keeping people scared or you can focus on keeping them safe. I have worked hard to have real policies that are making a difference.
Kathy Hochul believes that the only crimes that are being committed are these crimes with guns. And you have people who are afraid of being pushed in front of oncoming subway cars. They're being stabbed, beaten to death on the street with hammers. We're halfway through the debate. She still hasn't talked about locking up anyone committing any crimes.
Okay.
Anyone who commits a crime under our laws, especially with the change they made to bail, has consequences. I don't know why that's so important to you. All I know is that we could do more.
Can't blame that on a stroke. And the ladies of The View seem to be stumped on why people even care about crime.
And I think most people, having been a prosecutor, I know this, they care about violent crimes. They don't care about broken window crimes. They really don't care about that as much. They care about violent crimes.
In the last few months, Lee Zeldin was nearly stabbed on stage while campaighting in New York. A bullet came within 30.
True. Yeah.
That's not okay, though. That's horrifying.
Okay.
That means crime and political violence is on that.
God, if we didn't have The View, we'd have huge blank spaces in our show. It's incredible. You know, Dana, I think Zeldin kind of helped expose the problem with this governor who wasn't elected, is that she's disconnected with real concerns. I think. Do you remember that when crime was happening, her big thing was pronouns. She was able to get the SUNY campuses to enforce their pronoun laws. Do you remember the real estate pronoun laws? Those were what she called the victims, were the pronouners.
And it was also very interesting. I felt that his energy matched the voters' concern.
Yeah. Right?
And that hers did not, because hers, she's like sitting back. She did not see the polls where the number one issue in New York to voters is crime. And then down a little bit lower than that is the economy and inflation. So that should have been something, I think, that she should have been able to match the concern of the voter with her energy. She did not do that. I thought his answer was very good as well when he's talking about all the other types of crimes that you see. And people are very much worried about broken windows crimes, as we talk about it all the time.
That's the philosophy, that when you let that stuff go, everything else comes up.
Also, how could Hochul say that these criminals end up with consequences with cash-free bail? We've seen it over and over again. How many times do we tell a story like, well, this victim was killed. Turns out, oh, guess what? He had a rap sheet a mile long and just got out last month after a burglary charge. The other thing I would point out is when she says to Zeldin on crime, I don't know why that's so important to you. It reminded me of do you remember Terry McAuliffe in Virginia running against Glenn Youngkin said, I don't think parents should tell teachers what to teach their kids.
Yeah.
That line was a gift to the Zeldin campaign if they use it.
Yeah, it's a very Judge, it's a very what difference does it make?
Absolutely. You know? But it's part of who Kathy Hochul is. I call her the accidental governor. I mean, no one voted her in. But it is this arrogant, kind of condescending, let the people eat cake.
You made a cake.
Yeah, I did make a cake today, but that's another issue. But why are you so concerned about it, with the changes? I don't know why that's so important to you. This woman is clueless. She is clueless. If you listen to the whole debate, and I did, there was very little she said about what she was going to do. She didn't talk about the economy, crime, taxes, or energy. What she talked about was the fact that we are paying $600 million for the Buffalo Bills Stadium, of which I believe her husband has a piece that doesn't own the actual concession. And the other piece that she talked about is the COVID masks, when Lee Zeldin brought it up, where she paid $637 million or whatever that is, double the amount of masks everywhere else in the country, and she got a big contribution. This is a woman who's part of the pay-for-play corruption in Albany. Lee Zeldin was on his game. He talked every issue, whether it was crime, the economy, energy. He knows what the issues are. And she says, what is crime to you? My God, there was a shooting in front of his house while his daughters were home. Somebody came up to attack him on a stage. This woman is in la-la land.
Yeah.
And you know what else? I'll tell you what else. When she was with Cuomo Cuomo, I don't think she learned a thing because he kept her in the background.
Yeah.
She was just there for, when they needed a lieutenant governor. She was, however, somewhat polished. She knew how to say, no, I've never been engaged in any kind of corruption. But she never said what she was going to do for New Yorkers. Lee Zeldin killed it.
Harold, in the green room, I was really struck when you said, I like the cut of Lee Zeldin's jib. I'm going to try to vote for him twice. And I said, Harold, that's illegal. And you said, that's the way I roll. And then you just hit me in the face. And it was just totally ridiculous.
I don't remember it quite like that, but I'll take your word. So, look, I think Zeldin had a pretty good night. I thought, Dana, to your point, and Judge, I think you were saying it as well, I thought that Governor Hochul would have spelled out 3 or 4 things that she had done, 2 or 3 things differently she was going to do, and 1 or 2 things even bigger she was going to do if re-elected, or I should say elected, because she's never been elected. Right. There might have been a missed opportunity there. But I think Lee Zeldin's challenge is that he's pro-life, that he's connected to Mr. Trump, former President Trump. And I think what the governor thinks is if she's able to connect him to those 2 factors, that will prevent him from running up any significant vote here in New York City, which makes up 40% of the vote, as we all know, the 5 boroughs do. We'll have to wait and see what happens.
But he said on the abortion issue, he won't change the law in New York. He's not concerned about that. That the law in New York, as it relates to abortion, is fine. He's not one of these zealots coming in saying.
Right, but I think Democrats would argue, well, there were people on the Supreme Court who said that, and look what happened. So we just are analyzing the debate here. We're not necessarily. Yeah. So I think that's where his challenge is. But if I were her, I'd have certainly I'd have used it as an opportunity to spell out, here's what we're doing on crime. Here's what's been wrong. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. And here's what I'm going to do the next 4 years to bring more jobs and investments and make health care more affordable all across the state. I didn't hear that from either of them.
So, Jesse, pretend that you watched the debate when, in fact, you were just hanging out in a hot tub.
I watched the debate in the hot tub. So if you're giving a speech, you can get away with platitudes. But if you're in a debate, you have to get specific. And Kathy had no specifics. Did you notice in the clip, she goes, well, I've pushed policies that do anything for crime. Name a policy.
Yeah.
She hasn't pushed any specific policy. And Lee was specific about bail and about the types of crimes being committed, about sentencing and psych wards. So that was good. It used to be considered racist to let black neighborhoods kill each other. That used to be considered racist by not policing black neighborhoods, by not prosecuting black-on-black crime. But today's Democrats are back to that.
Yep.
They're not policing, and they think that's somehow not racist. In fact, it is. So, Dana, you're right. You have to connect to the streets, and she can't connect at all. You can see her eyes are glassy. She's got no emotion. And the country right now, especially New York, is emotional, and they're emotional about crime. The View, if you get picked up in a town car from a Upper East Side doorman building and then get chauffeured to a nice studio that's guarded by former NYPD officers and then shuttled back, you're not really in touch with the people. Yep. And you can't say crime's not an issue when that's your lifestyle.
That's a good point, because we live similar lifestyles, but we are like, most of us walk in the city.
We walk a lot.
We know how bad crime is. For Sunny Hostin to say it's nobody cares about that.
They're not walking around.
Yeah, they're not walking around. Her feet don't touch the ground.
But in addition to that, it shows her naivete. She says people are only worried about violent crime. You know, we don't care about broken windows. She doesn't understand the concept that broken windows are one of the ways to prevent the more violent crime.